Hi, everybody. It's been a little bit of time since I've done one of these actually, but I'm here with Steve Davis and we're talking about recruiter enablement. Very privileged to have the time with Steve today because he's got a lot of experience to share. Steve, give us a bit about you and your background to start with.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate you taking the time today. So, I'm Steve Davis. I am a TA leader and have been in the TA space for a very long time. I started my career in executive search a long time ago. I was a partner at Heidrick and Struggles. Was fortunate enough to go to a client. I went to Goldman Sachs. I spent 9 years there, leading TA teams. More recently, I was with Broadridge Financial Solutions, where I ran talent acquisition globally for them. And most recently was with Wilson HCG, where I led consulting services on a global basis, helping companies do recruiting better.
Great. Okay, so recruiter enablement. This is a big part of doing recruitment better. There's so many different elements involved in recruitment. There's 70 plus processes in it. But what I want to focus on is like the job of a recruiter is so multifaceted these days. We expect recruiters to be experts in recruitment marketing and talent sourcing and negotiating and data analysis and all sorts of other things. But typically, what we do is we give them a minimal amount of tools and we then tell them to go and be entrepreneurial and get 40 recs filled from a treasury manager to a receptionist to a chief financial officer. And of course, no recruiters have got all the knowledge and skills they need to get these things done. So, what, from your experience, like, what are some of the ways that we can go about if we're running a team of recruiters at a Goldman Sachs or at another large organization? What are some of the ways that we can help them to just be better at their jobs and get things done more productively?
Yeah, I think the one of the things that we can do and should be doing is be thinking about our recruiting teams almost like a sales organization.
Yeah.
So individuals have unique and discrete roles within that function, and then giving them the appropriate training within that space. So you have individuals on the team who are recruitment marketers, or you have individuals on the team who are sourcers, and whatever that looks like in the future, right? With technology and AI and how we develop that. Operational functions and the technology and the automation to do that and look at what those you said 70 discrete functions. Um, what do we need to do to take out the parts that can be automated? And so we start thinking about the functions. You have a recruiting function, which is market facing. You have your internal operational functions. You have your sourcing functions, your development functions, and then you start cross training people and within those functions, and so that they all understand what each discrete part is. And then you also can provide things like career ladders and career progression within that space.
I mean, I like the way that you compare this to a sales organization. I've done that a lot over the years. And I look at a typical sales organization and the sales development representatives who are working up at the top of the funnel, trying to create leads. And then there's account executives whose job it is to take the lead and drive it through. The sales engineers, there's onboarding experts. There's a whole different, it's
Mhm.
highly segmented. And so the way that you've described a recruiting function sounds like it's not dissimilar with segments,
I
but I
would think
don't
of
think
that.
most of them are like that.
No, I don't think so either. And I think that if you look at a head of TA, they're almost like a chief revenue officer within an organization. Then you have your chief marketing officer, and you have a sales operations function, and then you have account management and account development. Then you have SDRs, and even within that account management function, you have things like executive recruiting. Then you have
Yeah.
professional recruiting. You have hourly recruiting. You have campus recruiting. And so while I'm not necessarily aligning recruiting with a sales job
Yeah.
per se,
Yeah.
right? Because I know we're going to get a lot of noise about recruiters being salespeople. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we think about the structure of the organization, it could be structured a lot like a sales organization could be structured. Plus, the mindset of it being a market facing client service outreach type organization.
Yeah, I agree. I think the structure is a really important element of recruiter enablement, and it's certainly one that, as we've been building our product, we've been thinking very much about okay, what is needed for these types of people and these types of people, and what's the personas of the individuals in the team. What are the main things that have changed in recruiting over the last kind of, let's say, 20 years or so, in terms of like what was the job 20 years ago that it isn't today, and vice versa?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think a lot about that. And obviously the technology has changed.
Yeah.
Right. I remember the start of ATSs, right? And Verve and Resumix and, all of those names that, gone to the ages, and how that was all going to change talent acquisition. And then I remember the rise of the job boards and Monster and Career Builder and, all of those. And so, unfortunately, though, the recruiter job has not changed that much.
Mm.
And I think that's a problem, because I think we now have so much technology and we can empower the recruiters with data and information, um, to allow them to focus on the advisory pieces much more so than they had in the past. And I think we're missing an opportunity. I think the reason we're missing the opportunity is that even if we're investing in great platforms, we're not changing how our TA teams operate within that context.
Yeah.
And so we're talking here about recruiter enablement.
Yeah.
Recruiter enablement means, though, it's not just giving them a great platform, right? It's about structuring your team, training your team, empowering your teams to use that technology, to use the information, to use the data, and giving them not only the resources, but the time with which to use that. So not a lot's changed, right? We're still screening resumes. We're still sending resumes to hiring managers. Hopefully we're giving candidates some feedback, although that we know that doesn't happen nearly enough. Not blaming the recruiters, right? Often they just don't have time, right? We're getting thousands of resumes. How do we respond, right? How do we create that environment? So unfortunately, not enough has changed. But
Yeah.
I think we're at a precipice where a lot can change.
Yeah, I agree. But why is it not? Because I agree it can change. Why is it not changed? Is that because the leaders typically haven't changed the processes to adapt to the opportunity that exists today?
I think so. I would
Yeah.
agree with that. I think when you say the leaders, both the leaders of the company, right? They're not looking at recruiting necessarily as a strategic enough function
Yes.
to invest in the things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But also HR and TA leaders, I don't think have built the right business case for that investment. And so it's we need to fill jobs. We need to fill jobs. Let's focus on mission one, filling jobs, filling jobs. And we're not, and I've been in that seat, are not always taking that step back enough to say, take a breath.
Yeah.
Let's look at what we're doing. We've been doing it largely the same way for a long time. How do we think differently about it? And I'm not saying that there hasn't been change, right? We've added bots,
Yeah.
right? And we've automated our outreach, and we're using CRMs, and we're
Yeah.
using content management systems, and we're thinking more about recruitment marketing and how do we tie that to brand. Like, we're doing all of those things. And so there has been change. I just don't know if operationally we've changed the recruiting teams enough to take advantage of all of those things that we're talking about.
So if I give you a vision, which is, I don't think recruiters are going to be doing a lot of talent sourcing, and I don't think they're going to be doing a lot of interviewing in 5 years' time. I think they're going to be managing the technology, designing experiences, and analyzing data and providing recommendations. And I think there's going to be a lot more hiring manager self-service around, okay, I've got this rec, press a couple of buttons, here's my short list. Okay, press another button, the interviews are all in my diary. And I think that recruiters are going to be doing a lot less of the traditional work. And I think they can already today, and they can act more as business partners. But um, interested to know if that vision is in line with what you would see, or you see something different.
I would agree that a lot of what you've just said I would agree with.
Yep.
right? I think we need to be careful about the usage of terms like manager self-serve,
Yep.
because that's just shifting work and shifting cost outside of HRTA to somebody else, and that's not really an efficiency gain, right? So we need to think about where in that manager self-serve we gain that efficiency, right? Just shifting it doesn't help as much as we'd like to think, right? Because then somebody still needs to do the work, right? Somebody needs to still think about if the interview was canceled or scheduled or a room needs to be booked, and AI might isn't yet today so great at accounting for travel time or gaps or interviews running over, or like you still need some human intervention there, right? So where does that sit and who does those functions, right? So it is not yet done, right? I don't think we're completely there. Um, but I envision a lot of what you've said, right? And there are platforms out there who are getting very close to that and enabling recruiters to do more of the advisory. Where are we thinking about hiring? How are we thinking about hiring people? What does internal mobility look like? How do we create a process internally so that we can go from, point A to point B to point C to point D, and it doesn't necessarily look like a lateral move always, right? So there are verticals, there are horizontals. How do we get people to move through the organization? And that's the type of advisory work that we should be doing. We should be helping managers understand when people are going to retreat, when are they leaving, when are they ready for promotion, when are they not, how do they fit. And that's the advisory work I think that the technology will help enable, because it's going to take us out of that pure transaction and the time consumption that goes into those transactions.
Absolutely. Steve, lots and lots of wise words from you there. I know you could get much deeper in all of these subjects and every subject talent acquisition related. So thank you so much for your time today. And I
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing you again soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you.